Today we are going to learn how to subtract mixed numbers. Please use your notebook when doing this work. It's going to be a little bit tricky, but I'm going to show you two ways like I did yesterday, a way A and a way B. All right. You also already have these notes in your math notebook from the other day. A golf ball measures about 1 4/6 inches across the center. We want to find out what is the difference between the distances across the center of a tennis ball and a golf ball. Since it's asking us for the difference, we know that we need to subtract. We look over to the right, we have our golf ball and our tennis ball. Since we're subtracting, we're always going to put the biggest number on top. So first, I'm going to show you the way that we did it the other day. Just ignore the other work that's on your paper already and do it this way. So we have 2 3/6 minus 1 4/6. If we look at this equation, we can subtract because our whole numbers, the 2 is bigger than the 1. Although we cannot subtract the fractional parts because 3 is less than 4. So I'm going to draw a line and we're going to do the first step to subtracting. So the first step that we need to do is we need to borrow from the 2 so we are able to subtract. So I'm going to cross off my 2 and take 1 away and make it a 1. Well, it still needs to be worth 2. So since my denominator is 6, because remember you don't change the denominators, I'm going to put a 6 on top of that. So 1 6/6 is the same as 2. Now we still have this 3/4 right here. So in order to make it equivalent, we have to add the 3/4 back, 3/6, not 3/4. We have to add the 3/6 back on. Now that's all you have to do for this step. So once again, we borrowed from the 2 and made it a 1. But it still needed to be worth 2. And since my denominator is 6, I put a 6 on top because 6/6 is 1 whole. So 1 6/6 takes care of the 2, and then I just added the 3/6 back on. I know it's weird that we're adding in a subtraction problem. Next step, you're going to finish this middle problem that we did. So we're going to add 1 back over here, and then we're going to add our 6 plus our 3, and we're going to get 9/6. And then we're just going to bring this other fraction right here over, so we have 1 4/6, and now we can just subtract. All we did was change 2 3/6 to 1 9/6. It's still equivalent, it's still the same amount. Now we can subtract, so we can take 1 minus 1 is 0, 9 minus 4 is 5. So we're going to end up with 5/6. Now I'm going to show you how to do it another way. You are free to choose whichever way you want to do it. The way that we're going to do it now is kind of like what we did yesterday with way B. So we have the same problem. We have 2 3/6 minus 1 4/6. The first thing we're going to do is make these into improper fractions so we can subtract. To make it into an improper fraction, we're going to take the whole number, multiply it by the denominator, and then add the numerator. So this problem will look like this. We will do 2 times 6, which is 12, plus 3 more is 15. So we have 15, our denominator stays the same, minus, now we're going to do the same thing with this one. So we're going to take our whole number, multiply it by the denominator, so 1 times 6 is 6, and then add 4 more. 6 plus 4 is 10. So now we have 10/6, okay? So all I did was take the fractions and turn them into improper fractions, or took the mixed numbers. Now I can just subtract. 15 minus 10 is 5, so we're going to end up with 5/6. You can choose whichever way is best for you, but we're going to practice using both until you get one that you're comfortable with. We are going to do the guided practice together. It may take me a few different pages to do this, but you are going to do everything in your math notebook. Number 1, a hole at the golf course is 3 3/6 inches wide. How much wider is the hole than the golf ball? Since it's asking us how much wider, we know that we need to subtract. So we're going to set up our problem, and we have 3 3/6, and we're going to subtract the golf ball, which from the other page was 1 4/6. Okay, so we're at a point where we cannot subtract. We can subtract the whole numbers, but we cannot subtract the fractional parts because 3 is smaller than 4. So we have to fix it. I am going to use both ways. We're going to do them together. So the first way, we're going to change 3 3/6 into an improper fraction. We're going to borrow from the 3. Oops, sorry about that. Hold on a second. Okay, there we go. We're going to borrow from the 3, and we're going to make it a 2. But it still has to be worth 3. And since our denominator is 6, we're going to put 6, 6. And then, so right now 2 and 6, 6 is the same as 3. We need to add this 3, 6 back on. So we're going to add our 3, 6 back on. Okay, that's all for that step. Same thing, now we're just going to fix it. So we have 2 and 6 plus 3 is 9, 9, 6. And we can subtract 1 4, 6. So now we just need to subtract our fractional part on top and get rid of the fractional part on the bottom. So 2 minus 1 is 1, and 9 minus 4 is 5. So 1 5, 6. Let's try it the other way. We're not going to do every problem the other way, but I want to do a few so you can choose what's better for you. So we're going to start again. We have 3 3/6, and we're going to subtract 1 4, 6. So our first step is we're going to change these into improper fractions. I know that my denominator is going to stay the same, so I'm going to write 6 on both of those. Now we're going to multiply our whole number times our denominator and then add the numerator. So 1 times 6 is 6 plus 4 is 10. And 3 times 6 is 18, plus 3 more is 21. Now we can subtract. So 21 minus 10 is 11, 6. If you end up with an improper fraction like this, you have to go one more step further and fix it. And you just ask yourself, how many times does 6 go into 11? Well, the answer is 1. Put your 6 down. And then subtract the difference. 11 minus 6 is 5. So 1 5, 6. You get the same answer. All right, let's look at number 2. On number 2, it says, why might you need to rename some whole numbers when subtracting? Well, you only need to rename the whole numbers if your fractional part on top is smaller than the fractional part on the bottom. If it's not, then you do not need to rename it. Make sure you write this sentence down on your paper or in your notebook. It's very important. You only need to rename it when the fractional part on top is smaller than the fractional part on the bottom. If it's not, you do not. So for example, look at number 3. So number 3, our fractional part on top, the 5, is actually bigger than the 4, so you don't have to rename it. So we can just subtract. 7 minus 2 is 5. 5 minus 4 is 1. So we'll end up with 5 1/8. All right, let's look at number 4. I'm going to go on to another page, but I'm still going to do this work. Make sure you do it in your math notebook. All right, so number 4, I have 5 minus 2 3/4. I have to say, when there's a whole number and then a fraction, a lot of kids just want to put 3/4 down and subtract 5 from 2. You cannot do that. So to solve this problem, you have to change your 5 so you can subtract. So we're going to cross off the 5 and make it a 4 and 4/4, which is the same as 5. Because 4/4 is 1 plus 4 would be 5. And we're going to subtract 2 and 3/4, and now we can subtract. So 4 minus 2 is 2, and then 4 minus 3 is 1/4. And there's your answer. All right, let's look at number 5. So number 5, we have 6 and 3/10 minus 1 and 8/10. I am going to use the first way. So we can subtract 6 minus 1, but we cannot subtract 3 minus 8. So we have to borrow from the 6. So I'm going to cross off the 6 and make it a 5, but I still have to make it worth 6, so I'm going to use my denominator, which is 10, so I have 5 and 10/10. That's still worth the 6. Now we need to add this 3/10 back on, so I'm just going to add the 3/10, and that's all we do for that step. Now we can draw a line, and so this becomes 5 and 13/10 because I added the 10 plus 3. And now I'm just going to bring this fraction over here. So 1 and 8/10. And if I subtract it, 5 minus 1 is 4, and 13 minus 8 is 5. So I get 4 and 5/10, or 4 and 1/2. All right, number 6. We've got 9 and 4/12 minus 4 and 9/12. Once again, I'm going to use the same way. I could use the other way, but the numbers are going to be way too big, because once you multiply 9 times 12 and then add 4, you're working with numbers over 100, which is why I like to just do it this way. So we have to rename this fraction because you cannot subtract 4 from 9. So we're going to borrow from the 9 and make it an 8. It still has to be worth 9, so it's going to be 8 and 12/12. Then we're just going to add this 4/12 back on. And that's it for that part. Now it's going to be 8. 12 plus 4 is 16/12. Now you can subtract 4 and 9/12. Okay, 8 minus 4 is 4. 16 minus 9 is 7. So you get 4 and 7/12. And that one is done. That leaves us with number 7 and 8. So number 7, whoops, I'm going to change my color here for you. Number 7, we have 4 and 5/6 minus 2 and 1/6. Please make sure that your work is nice and neat. Hopefully you're following along. If you are, circle number 6 for me. That way I know that you're following along with me. All right, this one's real easy. You don't have to do anything. Since the 5 is bigger than the 1, you don't have to rename anything. So we have 4 minus 2 is 2. 5 minus 1 is 4. So 2 and 4/6. If you want to, you know that 4 and 6 are both even, so you could divide both sides by 2, and you would get 2 and 2/3. But I'm okay if you want to leave it as 2 and 4/6 for right now. I will specify on the test if I need you to reduce all the way. For the last problem, I will do it the other way for you. So we have number 8. We have 1 and 9/12 minus 10/12. Well, you cannot take 9 from 10, so we need to rename or fix this fraction. So for this one, I'm going to use part B. Way B. I'm going to multiply 1 times 12, which is 12. 12 plus 9 is 21 over 12 minus 10 over 12. Well, 21 minus 10 is just going to be 11 twelfths, and that's my answer. All right, you can choose which way you're going to do it. I want you to go ahead and do the odd numbers on page 521. Show your work, make sure it's nice and neat, and show me when you are done.